If you'd like to learn how all of these race car variations can be made from the same symbol, you're in the right place, and that would be here in the Work Smarter Not Harder dojo with me, Tony Harmer, aka the Design Ninja. In this movie, you're going to see how I build out a symbol that gives me the flexibility to create loads of different variations based on that symbol. Okay, so I'm going to start out here with showing you what I've drawn. I'm going to go into outline mode, Command Y or Control Y to see that, and you can see all of the different elements here. Now you'll notice there are some things down at the bottom here that have numbers next to them, and momentarily you'll find out exactly why that is. So I could go ahead here and just turn this into a symbol, but at the moment it would not be as efficient as it could be. If I go to the bodywork here, for example, and drag that away, you can see it's just one single piece just there. If I just undo that to go back, but I've also got the trim of these wheels that I'd like to colorize along with the body. So what I'm going to do is select both of those trims and the bodywork. Remember to use Shift to select different items. And then I'm going to turn that into a compound path. Command 8 or Control 8 is the quick way to do that. And I'll just drag that away just to make sure that it is indeed selecting that. Okay, I'm going to undo, and what I'm going to do now is just move this up the artboard. But because its position is key to getting this right, I'm going to do it using the selection tool dialog. Now, with the selection tool active, all you need to do here is hit return, which gives you the move dialog. Now, I don't want to change the position horizontally, but vertically, if I do, I'm going to move that by -80 millimeters here on mine. Now I'll tab through, okay, just to make sure that's exactly where I want it to be. And I'm going to hit OK. Now I have this number just here, which I'm going to just move up or copy up to that particular point. And that's just a reminder for me of how much I moved it by. And technically I should change that, you know, to -80 there, like so. Brilliant. Now I could go ahead and optimize some other areas of this. For example, this wheel group just here, if I go ahead and deselect the wheel arch, I could actually duplicate that over onto this side. So I'm going to turn it into a symbol. So F8 is the quick way to do that, but you could easily just go ahead, open your symbols panel and click on the add new symbol icon. I'm going to call this wheel, like so. Movie clip is fine. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff, and the registration center makes a good idea for a wheel. I'll hit OK, and now that's a symbol like so. I'm then going to go ahead and target just one part of the wheel here. In fact, I'm going to remove everything else apart from that one center part of the wheel just there. Okay, so I'll hit delete to get rid of those. I'm then going to change the color of this quite dramatically. Okay, so I can see what it is. Okay, and also bring that to the front as well. Okay, now I've done that, I'm going to shift click the wheel, okay, the symbol there, and then go back and click on the ellipse. That makes it a key object. So now if I go ahead and use the alignment controls, they will align to that shape. So I'll click Align Center, and that is in exactly the right place. So I'll click on the circle because I no longer need that and delete it. Now, of course, what I should have done was make a copy. So what I'm going to do here is quickly copy that, undo just a couple of times, delete the circle, okay, and then paste in front, Command F, Control F. So there we are. I've got to the same result just there. Now what I'm going to do is bring the body back down into the artwork here. So I'm going to select that. Again, my selection tool is active, so I'll hit return. Again, I don't want to move it horizontally, but for value, I just want to put 80 in there and just double check that that's going into the right place before I hit OK. So now I've got those two elements done. That's just fine. I can now bring in the other elements. Well, this element here is like a shading element for the bodywork. So what I'm going to do is zoom in, okay, and then I'm going to hold down Shift because that multiplies the move amount, and tap my right arrow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times just there. Now this needs to come back to the front, so I'm going to hold down Shift Command, that would be Shift Control on Windows, and my right bracket to bring it to the front. And I think I've just moved the bodywork a bit, so I'm just going to nudge that back in using the arrow keys. I'll then grab this element here, and again I'm using the Shift key and the right arrow to move that in and bring it to the front, and then just nudge that into place just there, but all by a predictable amount. Now I'll go ahead and select this shape here because what I want to do is change the opacity of the larger shape. I'm going to go ahead and go to the appearance here in the properties panel, and then I'll change this to overlay, okay, and then drop the amount down here. So I'm going to go for about halfway. Do you know what? I think that's going to be too thin. So I'm going to choose multiply, okay, because dark colors multiply over the top of colors. And I think actually that's probably about right, about 40, 50%, something like that. Yours may vary. Okay, let's zoom out to see the whole document. Command 0 here. I can also get rid of that piece of text, and I'll go for the next items, which are themselves a compound path. They're just filled with very, very light grey, and I'm going to move those by -90. So again, I'll hit return on my keyboard. No horizontal movement here. Okay, -90 into the vertical field, and then just hit OK, and you can see those elements are sitting nicely there. Now I'll change the blend mode of these to screen, and screen on as light colors first. Dark colors start to disappear until they get to black, which is invisible. And again, I'm just going to drop down the opacity there. I reckon about, let's go with 65% just there is fine. Of course, that can be varied later on as well. I can get rid of that number. I can go for the fuel cap here. So what I'm going to do is bring that up by -80. And you can see here how easy this is to do. Okay, I can just use the keyboard there if I want to nudge that into the right place in terms of numbers there. I'll hit OK and bring that to the front. I'll change the blend mode of that to multiply and also drop that down just a bit like so. Let's go for about 47 is fine just there. Okay, perfect. I'll get rid of that number, and then I'll go ahead and grab these stripes just here. Okay, and again, move them. This time, I think it's -75. So let's just go ahead and move that. That looks to be in the right place to me, so I'll hit OK, and I'll bring this up to the front. I can get rid of the number here as well, and then what I'm going to do is just take this backwards a little bit in the stacking order, or bring the other two elements up to the front. In fact, I think I'm going to do that. It's easier. There we go. Now I'll select this stripe element here. It's just a group made of different colored lines that have been outlined to paths, and I used a plugin from Graphics to actually do this, making it very, very easy indeed. So check them out if you can. I'll then go to the opacity here. This time I'm definitely going to choose overlay, and you can see the effect that has just there, but I'll also maybe drop that down a bit and see how that looks. Do you know what? Actually, I'm going to start with it at about 85, something in that region. Okay, I might even go back and change that to full on, because you can see here how one of those stripes at the moment isn't doing that much. So do you know what? I'm going to do that right now. I'll take that up to 100% just there. Okay, that's pretty much it. It is ready. So I've created my compound path here for the body shape, which is perhaps the most important. I've got the roof and the beginning of the bonnet or hood section just there as well. Those are the things that I would like to change, and my filler cap if I want to as well. In fact, I think I'm just going to go ahead and select that and make that maybe slightly more neutral just for the time being. You can see now the benefit of having that small shape on top of there as well. It adds some depth to it. So I'll go ahead and go back out. Let's just have a quick look. I think, I just need to move those wheels and the wheel arches back in the stacking order. Just there, so I'll send those right down to the back. There we are. That's much more what I was looking for. Now at that point, it's pretty much ready to go as it is. If I just want that and just to be able to change the colors, then that's fine. But do you know what? I want to crank that up a notch. So let's take a look at that after this. So let's take a look at how we can do that. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out here because what I've got is I've got a whole bunch of different characters here. I'm using a font from Adobe Fonts. Okay, this is called Jubilat Black Italic. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually outline all of these. Now I could leave them as text, but I don't want to here. I'm going to outline all of them. So Shift Command O, Shift Control O on Windows, and then they are all individual shapes. Okay, so once I've done that, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to turn these all into symbols individually. And you'll see here, I've actually got 3 already, 180 of those twice. You'll see why it's twice in just a moment. So I'm going to keep my symbols panel open. In fact, I'll drag it out down here. And one of the ways we can make symbols, of course, is to simply drag it into the panel. Now, when I do this, before I even give it a name, and trust me, this advice is going to help you a lot. Okay, I am going to click on this right-hand registration point. I'm then going to call this 2L. Okay, so it's a number 2 that goes on the left just there, and I'll hit OK. Now, when I do that, I don't think you can quite see it on here, but there is a registration point for any symbol because that is converted immediately to a symbol instance. I don't need it here though, so I'm going to delete it. I'm going to select the next 2 just here. Okay, and before I even do it, I'm going to hit the left-hand registration point, and then I'm going to call this 2R here, like so. Okay, good. There we go. All right, so what I'll do is then I'm going to bring out a number 1 here, okay, and just hover over that. I don't know if you can see it, but that's 1 on the left. And I'll bring out this one here, and this is 1 on the right. Now, when you have any symbol selected, okay, you can use the Replace menu here in the control strip or down here in the Properties panel and replace it with any other symbol. So if I wanted to replace it with 2R here, you can see how I can do that. And if I select the 1, okay, and I want to replace that with maybe 8 left, you can see how that works as well. But we're still not quite done. Now, just so you know, typically I normally start with the widest numbers, okay, and those are usually the number 8 character just here. So I've got those both together, okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to group them, okay, so they're a group with 2 symbols in, all right. I'm then going to add a new fill, so Command, hold down Control on Windows and hit the / key, and then you've got a new fill. We then need to go to the Appearance panel, okay, and we can change the color of that fill if we want to. I'll do it here just for visibility reasons, so you can see it is actually there. Then I'm going to drag that underneath the contents of the group, keep it highlighted, okay, and then I'm going to add an offset path effect. So I'll just offset the path there like so. Actually, that looks pretty good as it is. I might bring that down just a shade. There we go. In fact, if I bring that to 2 millimeters on mine, that's just fine. And I'll change the joins here to round. That just gets rid of any problem angles. Okay, that's good as it is, but I think I'm going to have another one of those. So I'll immediately hit the plus at the bottom of the Appearance panel, which duplicates that item. I'm going to change the color of this to very dark gray. twirl that open because you can see it copied the effect with it, and then just increase the effect a bit. I think if I go for 3mm just here, there you go, that's looking pretty good. I'll change the original fill now to my intent, which was white, like so. Okay, then I can bring that onto the car. Now I might want to actually change it in the stacking order a bit, or have the highlight going over the top here. So if I just go ahead and bring that to the front, you can see how that just has an effect just here. Really nice soft effect there. And I think over the top of the stripes is just fine the way it is. Now we're ready to go with the symbol. Okay, and of course you'd have to repeat that for all of the numbers. What I'm going to do is select it, everything there, making sure I've got all of the bits that I need, and sometimes I move it just to make sure, and then turn that into a symbol. Now I actually accidentally closed the symbol panel just now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that back from the window menu here. Man, I've got a lot of panels with my plugins. And then I'll add this as a new symbol. So I'm going to call this racer, like so. Going to make absolutely sure it's a dynamic symbol. And if you don't see that in your symbol options, then you're not going to be able to do the color changing, but you will still have some flexibility, and you might consider upgrading so you've got that. I'll hit OK, and there is my racer. Now you can see here in this actual file that I've got several racers. You now know how they were all built. So let's go ahead and make some changes to this symbol instance. I'm just going to drag a few more copies down here so you can see them. Okay, now I'm going to start making some changes. So I'll tap A on my keyboard to get the direct selection tool. I'm going to click on this bodywork element here, and then choose or mix a new color. I think I'll have this one as kind of a pink color, like so. And you can see that changes. Change the wheel trims as well. Okay, and the highlights working nicely on top. I'll click on the roof section there. Let's make the roof section really dark gray, I think. Or maybe something super contrasty. There we go. Let's go for a green. Nice. There we are. Now to change the numbers. Now if I click through onto the numbers, okay, with the direct selection tool, Illustrator recognizes, okay, that I've got a symbol there. So I can now go and change that for one of my other symbols. So I want one on the left. Okay, and maybe I'll change the number on the right as well. So let's just change that for a 0. Just there. Whoops, I chose the left-hand version. Okay, so there you are. Now I need to choose the right-hand version just there, and everything is preserved. Now I don't just have to work with colors. If I click on this body here, okay, I'm going to go ahead and add a pattern. So I'm actually going to go out and choose a different pattern. I'm going to choose from one of the Vonster patterns from my mate Von Glitchker. Okay, and click here and add a pattern like so. Now you could also add a bit of color to that. However, in a moment, you're going to see how I actually don't need to. So there's this nice flame pattern there. If you want to transform it, you can. It's best via the dialog. So for example, if I wanted to rotate that, I would tap R on my keyboard, okay, and hit return. I would then make sure that transform objects was turned off, but transform patterns was turned on. And then I can move the pattern around like so. I can also do scale on that if I want to, and even shear. So how do I go about getting a color behind that? Well, actually, right, one of the ways I could do it is to add a new fill. So I'm going to hold down the command key and hit slash. Okay, I'm then going to drop that fill down beneath the contents. Okay, and if I want it to be a different color, then I can go ahead and change that color. So I've got an override like so if I want to. And you could even go ahead and keyline them in the same way as we did with the numbers just there. But there you go. You've got a whole bunch of different flexibilities that you can use there. And if you had to do something like a monthly or even weekly infographic with that kind of information, rather than doing a whole load of drawing, okay, you could just make a few changes and, like us, we're done. Okay, see you next time here in the Work Smarter Not Harder Dojo. See ya.